In the heart of Manchester, where grey skies often hung low and dreams seemed to fade like distant memories, Emily Thompson stood by her apartment window. At 32, life had carved deep lines of struggle across her face, each wrinkle telling a story of hardship and resilience. The small flat was more than just a living space. It was a testament to her survival. Faded wallpaper peeled at the corners, and a single chair sat near the window, bearing witness to countless nights of worry and uncertainty. Emily's world had shrunk to these few square meters since losing her job at the textile factory 6 months ago. Her fingers traced the edge of an old photograph, her mother's last gift. Margaret Thompson's gentle smile seemed to whisper words of hope from beyond. "Stay strong," the image seemed to say. Those words had been Emily's lifeline through countless dark moments. The stack of unpaid bills sat on the rickety table, a mountain of paper that seemed to grow larger with each passing day. Electricity, rent, phone, each envelope was a reminder of her shrinking possibilities. She had been proud once, a skilled worker with dreams of making something of herself. Now those dreams felt like distant whispers. Every morning, Emily would wake up early, dress carefully in her best clothes, and spend hours searching for job opportunities. The local library became her second home. She would sit for hours typing applications, making calls, hoping for just one chance. The librarian, an older woman named Helen, had started to recognize her, offering small words of encouragement. "Something will come," Helen would say, sliding a cup of free library coffee towards her. But hope was becoming harder to hold on to. Her savings were nearly gone. The small amount she had carefully put away over years of hard work was disappearing fast. Each job rejection felt like a personal blow. Sometimes she would sit by the window and watch the Manchester streets, wondering how she had ended up here. At night, the silence of her apartment was deafening. She would remember her mother's stories of resilience, of working multiple jobs to keep their family fed. Margaret Thompson had been a single mother who never complained, who always found a way forward. Emily wondered if she had inherited that same strength. The community center became her lifeline. Every Wednesday she would volunteer, helping with food donations, sorting clothes for those even less fortunate than herself. It was here that she felt a connection, a sense of purpose beyond her own struggles. Thomas, an older volunteer with kind eyes and weathered hands, noticed her determination. He had seen many like her, people fighting against circumstances that seemed impossible to overcome. "You've got something special," he would tell her, sorting cans of food. Emily's days became a rhythm of hope and disappointment. Morning applications, afternoon volunteering, evening of careful budgeting. She sold everything she could, old furniture, extra clothes, anything that might keep her afloat for one more month. Her phone, now a lifeline to potential opportunities, became her most treasured possession. Each ring brought a mix of anticipation and fear. Would this be the call that changed everything? Or another rejection? The winter was approaching, and with it came additional challenges. Heating would become expensive, food more scarce, but Emily refused to give up. Her mother's photograph watched her constantly, a silent reminder of the strength that ran in her blood. At night, she would write in a small journal. Not complaints, but plans, possibilities, dreams that refused to die. Each page was a testament to her hope, her belief that something would change. She didn't know how or when, but Emily was certain of one thing: she would not be defined by her current circumstances. The struggle was temporary. Her spirit was permanent. As the Manchester sky darkened and the first drops of rain began to tap against her window, Emily closed her journal. Tomorrow would be another day, another chance, another opportunity to prove. That hope was more than just a word. Her mother's words echoed in the quiet room. "Stay strong, my dear, every storm passes." And Emily believed her. The community center buzzed with quiet energy on Wednesday mornings. Emily moved between shelves, organizing donated food items with careful precision. Her hands, once steady in the textile factory, now sorted cans and packages with a rhythm that spoke of determination. Thomas watched her from across the room. At 67, he had seen many volunteers come and go, but something about Emily was different. His weathered hands sorted clothing donations, but his eyes kept drifting to her quiet resolve. "Another package of pasta," Emily called out, placing a large bag on the sorting table. Thomas smiled, remembering his years as a postman, another life of service and connections. "My nephew Richard might know something," Thomas said casually, one morning breaking the comfortable silence. Emily looked up, hope flickering in her eyes like a small candle in the wind. Richard worked at a small printing business in the city centre. He wasn't looking for staff, but something about his uncle's persistent recommendation made him curious. Thomas spoke of Emily with a passion that suggested more than just a casual recommendation. That week, Emily prepared differently. Her best shirt, slightly worn but carefully ironed, hung ready. She practiced her introduction in the mirror, working to sound confident but not desperate. Years of job rejections had taught her that desperation was a scent employers could smell. The community center became more than just a place of volunteer work. It was a lifeline, a connection to possibility. Helen, the kind librarian, helped Emily print her updated resume. Margaret, an older volunteer, gave her interview tips learned from decades of work experience. Richard agreed to meet Emily for a casual conversation. The local coffee shop, with its mismatched chairs and steam-covered windows, became the unexpected stage of her potential turning point. "Tell me about yourself," Richard said, his hands wrapped around a warm coffee cup. Emily took a deep breath. This wasn't just an interview, it was a chance to tell her story. She spoke about her textile factory experience, her volunteer work, her determination. Thomas had mentioned her ability to organize, her quiet strength, her commitment to learning. Richard listened, really listened, in a way no previous potential employer had. The printing business wasn't glamorous. It was a small operation that handled local business cards, event posters, and small publication runs. But to Emily, it represented something far more important, a chance to rebuild. Their conversation drifted from work to life. Richard shared stories of his own struggles, how he had taken over the family business after his father's unexpected illness. Emily listened, finding unexpected common ground in their stories of resilience. Outside, Manchester's typical grey sky threatened rain. But inside the coffee shop, something was shifting. Possibilities were taking shape, like invisible threads weaving a new future. "We could use someone like you," Richard finally said. The words hung in the air, heavy with potential. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she accepted a temporary contract. It wasn't a full-time position, it wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. Thomas watched from a distance, a knowing smile crossing his weathered face. He had seen this moment coming, the intersection of hope and opportunity. His late wife would have called it fate. He simply saw it as life's way of rewarding persistence. That evening, Emily called her mother's photograph. "Something's changing," she whispered, touching the frame. The photograph seemed to smile back, a silent witness to her journey. The printing business was small, tucked away in a narrow street with windows that let in just enough light to make the workspace feel alive. Stacks of paper, shelves of ink, the constant hum of machinery. It would become her new world. As night fell over Manchester, Emily packed her small bag. Tomorrow would be her first day. The weight of possibility felt different from the weight of worry she had carried for so long. Hope, she was learning, wasn't a grand gesture. It was a series of small moments, a conversation, a chance, a belief that something better was possible. And for the first time in months, Emily believed. The morning of the interview arrived with a soft Manchester drizzle. Emily stood in front of her small mirror, hands shaking slightly as she buttoned her carefully chosen blouse. It wasn't new, just her best piece, pressed and prepared for this moment. Richard's printing business occupied a narrow building on a quiet street. Old brick walls and large windows told a story of years gone by. Emily could see her reflection in the glass, a woman both nervous and determined. She arrived 15 minutes early. The receptionist, a kind-looking woman named Margaret, smiled warmly. "First interviews can be scary," she whispered, sliding a glass of water towards Emily. The gesture felt like a small lifeline. The waiting room was simple. Old magazines scattered on a wooden table, photographs of the business's history hanging on the walls. Emily noticed how each picture told a story of hard work and family tradition. Richard entered the room with a stack of papers in his hand. He wasn't what Emily expected. Not a stern businessman, but a man with kind eyes and a genuine smile. "Shall we talk?" he asked, gesturing to a small meeting room. The interview wasn't like others Emily had experienced. Instead of a harsh interrogation, it felt more like a conversation. Richard asked about her previous work, her volunteer experiences, her dreams. He listened, truly listened, in a way no other employer had. "Tell me about a time you overcame a difficult situation," Richard said. Emily thought about her months of struggle, the endless job applications, the moments of near despair. She spoke honestly about her journey. Her hands moved as she spoke, telling the story of her resilience. The job at the textile factory, the unexpected unemployment, her volunteer work at the community center. Each word was a piece of her truth. Richard made notes, but his eyes never left her face. He saw something beyond the words, a spirit of determination that couldn't be captured on a piece of paper. Thomas had been right about his niece. The interview lasted longer than Emily expected. They discussed the printing business, its challenges, its potential. Richard spoke about family, about the importance of finding the right people. It felt more like a conversation between potential colleagues than a formal interview. Outside, the Manchester sky began to clear. Sunlight pushed through. The grey clouds, a perfect metaphor for Emily's moment of hope. "We don't typically hire quickly," Richard explained, "but I believe in giving people a chance." His words hung in the air, filled with possibility. Emily's heart raced. She had learned not to hope too much, not to expect too much. Years of rejections had taught her caution, but something felt different this time. Margaret, the receptionist, gave her a knowing smile as she left. "Good luck," she whispered. A simple blessing that felt like more than just words. The walk home felt different. Emily's steps were lighter, her breathing easier. She thought about her mother's photograph, about Thomas's constant encouragement, about the small moments that had led her here. At the community center, she couldn't help but share her excitement with Thomas. He listened, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of someone who had seen many such moments of potential. "Life has a way of surprising us," Thomas said, sorting donated clothes. His words were simple but profound. That night, Emily didn't immediately check her phone for messages. She didn't frantically refresh her email. Instead, she sat by her window, watching the Manchester evenings settle into darkness. Her mother's photograph watched her. The same strength that had carried her mother through difficult times now burned in Emily's eyes. Whatever happened, she had already won something important, her own sense of self-worth. The phone rang unexpectedly. Richard's voice was warm, filled with possibility. "When can you start?" he asked. Emily's hand touched her mother's photograph. A tear of joy, of relief, of hope rolled down her cheek. Something was changing. Something beautiful was beginning. They say, printing business felt like a new world to Emily. Machines hummed with life, papers stacked in organized towers, and the smell of fresh ink filled the air. Her first weeks were a dance of learning and uncertainty. Margaret, the senior administrator, watched Emily closely. She had seen many young workers come and go, but something about Emily was different. Her determination was quiet, but powerful. "Watch how you align these documents," Margaret would say, showing Emily the precise movements of professional organization. Emily's hands, once skilled in textile work, now learned the art of printing and administration. Richard wasn't just a boss. He became a mentor, understanding that every skilled worker starts somewhere. He saw potential where others might see only inexperience. "Everyone begins somewhere," he would remind Emily when she worried about making mistakes. The first month was challenging. Emily's confidence wobbled like a new bicycle rider. Some days she would make small mistakes that felt enormous. Other days she would complete tasks with a precision that surprised even herself. Thomas continued to be her support system. Every Wednesday at the community center, he would listen to her work stories. "Learning takes time," he would say, his postman's hands sorting donation boxes. "Be patient with yourself." Her colleagues slowly became more than just workplace acquaintances. Sarah from accounting would bring extra coffee on tough mornings. James from design would explain complicated printing techniques with unexpected patience. Emily started taking evening classes, basic computer skills, advanced administration courses. Anything that might help her grow. Her tiny apartment became a learning center, books and notes scattered across her small table. The printing business wasn't just about papers and machines, it was about stories, about helping local businesses communicate. Emily began to understand the importance of her work. Each poster, each business card represented someone's dream. Her financial situation slowly improved. No more constant worry about paying bills. She could now save a little, plan a little. The constant fear that had lived in her chest began to dissolve. Richard noticed her growth. "You're becoming an important part of our team," he told her one afternoon. Those words meant more than any paycheck. The community center remained her anchor. Even with her new job, Emily continued volunteering. She understood now more than ever how small acts of kindness could change lives. Her mother's photograph watched her transformation. The woman in the picture seemed to smile with pride, witnessing her daughter's journey of self-discovery. Margaret began teaching her more complex administrative tasks, filing systems, communication protocols, client management. Emily absorbed everything like a sponge. Her textile factory skills of precision and patience served her well. Some days were still difficult. Moments of self-doubt would creep in. But now Emily had tools to fight those moments. She had learned to breathe, to pause, to understand that growth wasn't about perfection. Thomas would remind her, every expert was once a beginner. His words became her silent mantra. The Manchester winter arrived, bringing cold and challenges. But Emily felt different, warmer, more confident. The woman who had once sat desperately applying for jobs was transforming. Her colleagues saw the change. The quiet, nervous woman was becoming a confident professional. Her smile became more frequent, her walk more assured. Richard watched her growth with quiet satisfaction. He had seen potential in her that first day at the coffee shop. Now that potential was blossoming. Emily's world had expanded. From a small flat of worry to a workplace of possibility. From desperate job applications to meaningful work. From isolation to connection. One evening, looking out her apartment window, she realized something important. Success wasn't about grand moments. It was about small, consistent steps, about believing in yourself, about never giving up. Her mother's photograph seemed to wink, a silent celebration of a daughter's journey. The Manchester sky outside seemed brighter, full of promise, full of hope. 1 year passed like a beautiful dream. Emily stood in the printing business, now promoted to office manager. The same walls that once felt strange now felt like home. Her journey from a struggling job seeker to a confident professional seemed almost unbelievable. Richard called her into his office on a crisp Manchester morning. "You've become our most valuable team member," he said, sliding a promotion letter across the desk. Emily's hands trembled as she read the words. Her salary would now cover not just her bills, but her dreams. The small flat that once felt like a prison now represented her triumph. She had transformed the space. Bookshelves replaced empty walls. Certificates of her evening courses hung proudly. Her mother's photograph watched over everything, a silent witness to her journey. Thomas continued to be her biggest supporter. At the community center, he would tell everyone about her success. She never gave up, he would say, his eyes shining with pride. Emily had become more than a volunteer. She was now a hope for others struggling. Her volunteer work took on new meaning. Instead of just sorting donations, she now helped organize training programs for unemployed individuals. She understood their struggles because she had lived them. Margaret from the printing business became more than a colleague. She became a mentor, a friend. "You remind me of myself 30 years ago," she would tell Emily, sharing stories of her, Own journey. On her mother's birthday, Emily did something special. She framed her first significant paycheck next to her mother's photograph. Tears of joy replaced the tears of struggle she had known before. She whispered a promise to her mother's memory. "I'm making it, Mom." The community center became a symbol of her transformation. Emily started a small support group for people facing job challenges. She shared her story, giving hope to those who felt lost. Her words were simple but powerful. "If I can do it, you can too." Richard watched her growth with quiet satisfaction. The woman who had nervously entered his office a year ago was now leading team meetings, managing complex projects. Her textile factory precision had found a new home in the printing business. Emily's evening classes continued. She was now studying business management, dreaming of potentially opening her own small business one day. The woman who once feared uncertainty now embraced possibility. Her colleagues had become her second family. Sarah from accounting, James from design. They celebrated her successes, supported her challenges. The workplace was no longer just a job, but a community. Thomas celebrated her most of all. "Your mother would be so proud," he would say, his eyes twinkling with emotion. Emily knew he spoke the truth. The Manchester sky seemed different now. Where once it represented grey uncertainty, now it symbolized hope. Emily had learned that life's most important journeys often start with a single step of courage. Her tiny apartment became a beacon of inspiration. Friends from the community center would visit, seeing her transformation as proof that change was possible. Her story became a quiet legend of resilience. On the anniversary of her first day at the printing business, Emily did something special. She wrote a letter to her past self, the woman who had struggled, who had doubted, who had feared. The letter was filled with hope, with understanding, with love. Richard surprised her with a special recognition at the company's annual meeting. "Emily represents everything we believe in," he announced. Colleagues applauded, recognizing her journey. The community center continued to be her anchor. She now helped organize job training programs, using her experience to lift others. Her story became a testament to the power of persistence. Her mother's photograph seemed to smile more brightly. The woman in the picture had always believed in her daughter's potential, even when Emily couldn't see it herself. As Manchester's evening settled, Emily looked out her apartment window. The city that had once felt cold and unwelcoming now felt like home. Her journey wasn't just about a job, it was about finding herself. Tears of gratitude rolled down her cheeks, not tears of struggle, but tears of joy, of triumph, of a new beginning. The photograph of her mother watched, silent, proud, a witness to an incredible transformation.